This model is something of a puzzle to the museum. It came here cataloged as an Admiralty model. A word about Admiralty models. Back during the Napoleonic Wars, the Admiralty lords weren't sailors, they weren't engineers. It would do no good at all to take them a roll of drawings. They wouldn't know what they were looking at. So the Royal Dockyards developed the practice of building a model. If the Admiralty wanted a 100-gun ship, they built a model of a 100-gun ship and took it to the Admiralty, and everybody looked it over and included any changes they wanted. And once the model of the ship they wanted, they took the model back to the dockyard and carefully took measurements off the model to the mold loft and produced the drawings to build the ship. That's okay, but historians never really liked that idea because people had built ships from paper drawings from way back in Phoenician times. And then the question is, why Admiralty models? It could have been a commemorative gift to the Admiralty Lord who ordered the ship. It could have been in archive, just built beside the ship to keep a record of how she was built. Or it could have been just a work of art or a hobby. Mars was built in 1797. She served in a Channel fleet for several years, and finally she fought in the Battle of Trafalgar under Admiral Hood. And the ship was badly damaged, and when she came home, she was put in ordinary in 1818, and finally just broken up in 1823. After the model came here in about 1998, there was an acknowledged expert on Dutch historic ships and models who came to the museum, looked their model over, and went home and wrote an article for the Nautical Research Guild that said this model was never an Admiralty model in the first place. His feeling was that back at the end of the Anglo-Dutch Wars in the 17th century, the Netherlands weren't a naval nation any longer. They had changed their attention to the army. So there were 5 big shipyards were closed in the Netherlands. And shipwrights began building very large-scale, very accurate models of ships as advertising illustrations to encourage people to come and build ships in their yards. Some of these ships were sold, some were lost, and some just plain disappeared. But 100 years later, when Admiralty models became collector's items, the Dutch weren't above finding these ships, digging them out of attics, changing the name on it a little bit and possibly the rigging, so that they could be sold as British Admiralty models. I don't know how Dr. Siegel could tell, but he tells us that this ship at one time had sails on the yard arms. I have never been able to find a mark any place that said anything had been fastened to the yard arms. But these blocks at the ends of the yard arm are typical Dutch design. The ships of the day, the French, Spanish, and the Dutch all built ships with a tightly curved stern on them, while the British ships were cut off with a square transom at the stern. Some of the rigging, the head rigging up there is not Dutch, but it's not British either. So we have a ship that has the characteristics and the name of being a British Admiralty model. In fact, this model is supposedly a model of Mars. Mars had been a 74-gun ship of the line. This model is far from having 74 guns. So you have your choice with this model, whether this is either a 200-year-old Admiralty model or a 300-year-old Dutch dockyard model.